من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قال عيسى ابن مريم يا بني إسرائيل إني رسول الله إليكم مصدقا لما بين يدي من التوراة ومبشرا برسول يأتي من بعد اسمه أحمد فلما جاءهم بالبينات قالوا هذا سحر مبين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير خلقه محمد وآله وأصحابه وأهل بيته وعترته وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Respected brothers and sisters who are present and my dearest children, Alhamdulillah, we are in the fourth lesson of Seeratul Nabi, and I hope the audio which I have sent after each lesson, you have listened to it so that it will be a rehearsal and reminder. Once you listen to a lesson and then re-listen, then it fixes into the mind, inshallah. So that way, it is very much encouraged that all of us, once we get the audio, we should listen to it once or two more times during the week, just to understand everything and get it firmed in our mind, inshallah. So, up to last week, we covered the historical aspects of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's arrival, and we looked at the family tree and the ancestral background, and we find that just briefly I'm going to remind you that mainly Allah Ta'ala sent Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and due to his sacrifices in life, gave him two sons. One was named Ishaq and the other was Ismail. And because of his sacrifices, Allah Ta'ala declared for him that he will be the leader for the entire world until Yawmul Qiyamah. And the leadership Allah Ta'ala gave him in such a way that he selected Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family to be the prophets for the guidance of the mankind until Yawmul Qiyamah. So his first son Ishaq alayhi salam, Allah Ta'ala gave him, Ishaq alayhi salam had the son Yaqub alayhi salam, whose other name was Israel, and all from his family, all the children who came, most of them, they became the prophets, and this is the chain known as Bani Israel, all the way from him until the last prophet who came in Bani Israel was Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus. And Jesus came approximately 570 years before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So that's the chain ended for Bani Israel. And then from the other son, Ismail alayhi salam, and we went through the sacrifices his father and he gave, that as a baby he was taken to this place, which is now the Kaaba, where the Kaabatullah is, in between the Safa and Marwa valley, the two mountains there. As a baby, this was his sacrifice. And then the Zamzam came, and then he grew up, and the father was asked to slaughter him. But these were all the tests he went through. And Allah Ta'ala basically was preparing him, because from him, the last prophet was going to come, which is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so this were the little bit of his historical background. And in his family, we looked at last week, the grandfather, in fact, was of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was a very great personality and a chief, and his name was Abdul Muttalib, and he was well known, very famous, beautiful personality, and very much respected and honored. But at that time, now people had diverted from the time, because 570 years had passed, and during this time, the idol worshipping started, and most of the big families of Makkah and around, they started having an idol which they brought and put in Kaabatullah, and they used to worship that. And anything, and they initially the way it started was, and this is why the ulama scholars, we should note, have asked us to avoid any idols, even though it may be in the form of decoration, because the way it started, for example, the grandfather died. Now, once because he was a great personality for the whole family, one of the member of the family, after his death, carved a stone statue looking like him a little bit, and they put that in the center of the house, and then they put some flowers on it. And if they were doing anything important, or anything important was happening in any member's family's life, they would go in front of the statue and say, "Oh, grandfather, please help us. You are our great authority. Now we don't have anyone." And this is how the idol worshipping started. Shaitan brought it back in, and then every family said, "Oh, rather than having the statue in our house, we'll take permission from the leader of Makkah and put it in the house of Allah, the Kaabatullah." And it all ended up. So there were approximately, at the time of arrival of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 360 idols. It is mentioned in the riwayat and hadith, or probably more. So people were worshipping idols. And now the last prophet is going to come. Allah Ta'ala decided that he will be the last in the chain. So, and Allah Ta'ala, in fact, made him the leader of all the prophet also. He had decided. So, ulama, they say that the previous books which were revealed to different prophets, like Musa alayhi salatu wasalam received the Torah, or in some cases they call it the Old Testament, but the actual book was Torah. Allah Ta'ala mentioned many ayat in Torah, or many verses, were all regarding the many verses were actually reporting that the arrival of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is very near. So many verses came in Torah which informed the people that a prophet is coming, not only about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also the Ummah, us, all the followers of the Prophet, what their qualities will be, what signs and what habits they will have. All these things have been mentioned in Torah. Then Allah Ta'ala sent the Injil to Isa alayhi salam when he came. This is now about 570 years before the arrival of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he also in Injil or the Bible, many verses were revealed to show that that Isa alayhi salam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is coming. And one of them, Allah Ta'ala, the ayat which I have read in the beginning, Allah Ta'ala is mentioning that that in the time in Isa alayhi salam, he was informed that after you there will be a prophet whose name will be Ahmad. Right? The ayat which I read to you, Allah Ta'ala has mentioned this in the Surah Saf. Right? Min ba'd ismuhu Ahmad. Even the name has been mentioned by Allah Ta'ala, or was decided by Allah Ta'ala. So these signs were being revealed. And then the time came when I think probably the important in the so the so in the Bible also Allah Ta'ala has mentioned that Isa alayhi salatu salam is coming, and okay, hold on, let me just so the signs were coming. So, but in the time of the arrival of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Makkah, the people Mushrikeen, they didn't have any calendar or system. The only calendar which existed was from the time of Isa alayhi salatu salam. The Christians had one, and the Jews also were recording everything from the time of Musa alayhi salatu salam. But there was no system, and the people of Makkah and the Arabs, they used to record important events with important events which used to happen in those, so anything important which happened in 1 year, they would say, oh, my son or my grandson was born in the year which this incident happened, right? So they used to record that. So Quran is also telling us that on the arrival of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was born, this was the year of the feel, the year of the event of the elephant. And I will explain the story of this, which actually happened. And so the ground was set. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is now arriving, but before arriving, many signs started happening. Many things started happening in the world, all around, because now the last prophet is coming, and that is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before his arrival, Allah Ta'ala is now changing the conditions and environment in the whole world. There is a change taking place, right? And the first of that event is the event of the elephant. And this is, because of Kaabatullah, the center of that whole area, for Syria and for Yemen, for all the countries which were surrounding Makkah at that time, the center of business also, and the center was Makkah. So people used to come to Makkah, right? And this person, whose name was Abraha, he was from Yemen. He thought to himself that everyone goes to Makkah and for their businesses, and they make all the profit. So how can I change that? And they are doing this because of the Kaaba, house of Allah. They all go there. So why don't I build something similar like that in my area, so that people will be attracted towards this. This is his name was Abraha, this person he thought about that. And so he started building it. Now the news spreaded that Abraha is building this second house of Allah. And when the people of Makkah, they found out, they said, well, this is not right. Kaabatullah is only one. Even though they were idol worshipping at that time, but they still had the respect of the house of Allah. And they used to say that, the main God is who is in the heaven, but we can't see him. But in order to get to him, we use these idols. This is the deception Shaitan put them in. And that's how they started committing shirk and creating partners with Allah Ta'ala. But they still had the respect. So they said, no one can build anything. This is the only one place. And we will not allow that to happen. So some of the people of Makkah, those who had the energy and anger, they decided that we will go and try and break up this place. And they went secretly, and in the night they found this place which they were building, in fact. And in the riwayat it's mentioned that they went, and the plan they made was that let's go and all of us secretly, at a time when no one will see us, we will go and relieve ourselves in that place to show our disgust and to show that we don't like this to happen. So instead of going to the washroom, if you like, or the toilet, they decided to do all their toilet in that place which Abraha was building for his sacred mission. And all of them, they went there. And then they came back. In the morning, when they came to and started building, they found this, terrible thing, that the entire construction which was being built was full of dirt, and and Abraha obviously got very furious, and he said, "Who has done this? I'm not going to rest until I punish those people." And after investigation, they found that it was some people who came from Makkah and they did this. Right? Obviously, the tribal leaders, like the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, Abdul Muttalib, he didn't know anything about it. But these people secretly went and they made Abraha so furious. He said that I am now going to not rest until I first of all go and destroy their house, the Kaaba, first. And he decided that he's going to take an army of elephants. Right? So he had, in those days, when they were fighting wars, they sometimes used the elephant because you were very high up, and elephants were very strong, and they could, so they were useful for fighting and wars. And so he took off a whole army of 40, 50 elephants. And in fact, in the riwayat it is mentioned that the elephant on which he was sitting, they had given names to these elephants, and the name comes that the name Hamud. So this elephant is sitting on that, and as a leader, they are all going now, and they are going to say, and this is happening in the same year where Rasulullah ﷺ is going to be born. His arrival is coming probably in 2-3 months' time, and just few months before this attack is taking place, he arrives. Now, Abdul Muttalib, he was a great personality, and mostly they used to have, sheep, herds of sheep, which this was one of the precious belongings. Like nowadays, the women like to have gold or some people like to have properties. So in those days, the main property or the main investment of people were, sheep and herds, because they were very valuable, and they were very beneficial. In fact, they could be sold. They could get so much milk from them and everything. It was a big investment. So Abdul Muttalib had a lot of, and every day people used to take, his sheep for grazing. They take the sheep and they used to go in the grassland, up in the mountains and different places and then these people will bring them back. So now the army is coming, and just outside the boundary of Makkah, they camped. And Abraha gave the order that we are going to prepare ourselves from here to attack. But first of all, anything which belongs to the Makkans in this area, seize it. So one of the things which was seized was the whole herd of Abdul Muttalib's sheep. They were all taken by Abraha, and he took them into his possession. Now the news came in Makkah that someone is planning to attack us, and of course they pushed Abdul Muttalib, because he was the leader, that you should go and talk to these people. Who are these people? Abdul Muttalib was a very clever and wise person, and he said, this house belongs to God, Allah. So it doesn't belong to me. So it belongs to Allah. So Allah is going to protect it. However, the sheep which he has seized and stolen, they belong to me. So I'm going to go and see him, not to ask him about the house and you shouldn't come and attack, but I'm going to just ask him about my sheep. So he made this plan, basically. And he arrived, and they captured him and they took him to Abraha, the leader, and they introduced him that he is the tribe leader of Makkah. He has come to see you. So Abraha obviously assumed that he has now come to see me, to plead with me and to talk to me about not attacking us. But Abdul Muttalib, he was very wise and he had some other plan. He was introduced and he asked, "Why have you come?" And so Abdul Muttalib said that, "Look, we heard that you have come here to attack us, but I am here because you have actually captured many of my sheep, the whole herd of my sheep. And I have come to ask you to please release my sheep." So Abraha was very surprised and astonished. And in fact, he started laughing. He started, "I thought you were intelligent, but you seem to be very foolish. I am here to destroy your whole city and Kaaba. And here you are worried about your sheep. Oh, this is nonsense." So now Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of Rasulullah, he gave him a reply. He said, "Look, the sheep belongs to me. But whereas the Makkah and the Kaaba, this house, it belongs to God. It belongs to Allah Ta'ala. So I am worried about something which belongs to me. And the house of Allah, because it belongs to Allah Ta'ala, He's going to take care of it. We don't have to worry about that." So he was surprised, but he became even more furious. Right? Anyway, he gave the order to his soldiers, "Please release the sheep of this old man." And so Abdul Muttalib took his sheep and went back. And now he said, "Let's plan the attack." And they all sat on the animals and leading the way. This Hamud elephant, the first one, with Abraha sitting on it, and all of them, they started moving towards Kaaba. And at that point, suddenly they saw that the clouds, very dark clouds, started appearing in the sky. And it seemed like clouds, but it became very dark. Right? And all of a sudden, from this dark cloud, black small birds, and these birds are very tiny. They are known as Ababil. They still exist. In fact, they are still around if you go to Makkah, and they are flying around Kaaba and so on. There's still very small one. So all of a sudden, the people saw that hundreds and thousands of these birds suddenly appeared in the sky, and each one had 3 small pebbles, very tiny stones, one in the beak and 2 in the claws. Every bird has the 2 claws. So they had very tiny, they were holding tiny pebbles, probably about the size of this much, and one in the beak and one in the, and all of them suddenly appeared right on top of the whole army. And they looked at it and they said, what's happening here? But they were there, and now Abraha gave the order that let's move fast. So he pushed his elephant Hamud to go forward, but Allah Ta'ala gave the order to the elephant to stop. So now the elephant, the first one, is not moving at all, and he is hitting him and beating the elephant and trying to say, go, it's not moving. So he's baffled and is surprised. He said, what's happening here? So he turned the elephant around. When the elephant turned around and started taking him back a little bit, so when he started taking back, he started moving. Then he turned around again and started coming. And he came with the elephant very fast. But this was a point where Allah had decided that as soon as it came to this point, the elephant stopped. Now it cannot move it. So he's now thinking, what's happening? And at that time, then Allah Ta'ala, and obviously this is happening before the arrival of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But Allah Ta'ala, the reason why we know about it is because Allah has sent a whole surah about this in the Quran. And this is in fact the surah, which is a very famous surah, and almost every Muslim knows it. And it's known as the Surah Fil. And usually what happens when we are children, we try to learn the Quran, enough Quran, so that we can read in the namaz. And usually we start from Surah Fil, because that's the 10th surah before the end. So the last 10 surah, the first one of the last 10 is Surah Fil. And we all learn these so that we can use them, because they are small surah. We can use them in our salat, in our namaz. Right? So Allah Ta'ala is saying, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil, Alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil, wa arsala alayhim tayran ababil, tarmihim bihijaratim min sijil, faj'alahum ka'asfim ma'kul. So this surah Allah Ta'ala revealed. And this is, so this, that the elephants who were there, now Allah Ta'ala gave the order to these birds to release the 3 pebbles each bird was carrying. And as soon as they released these pebbles, Allah Ta'ala made them come down like the speed of a bullet from the heaven. And they came down in such a way, Allah is saying in this surah, that when they released the 3 pebbles, it would go through so the person is sitting on the elephant, so the pebble hit his head, it went right through him, and then right through him, and then right through the elephant, and then to the ground. And as it was traveling with such a speed that it turned the entire elephant and the person into dust or into ashes. Allah Ta'ala is saying, we turned everything into ashes. And the whole army of Abraha was destroyed. So this was the incident, and this is the year when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born. Right? So I'm going to end the lesson at this point because our half an hour is up. But so, this is Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The first sign of his arrival is this incident, which became a sign for everyone in that area that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born in the year of the elephant, right? Because the Islamic calendar actually started after the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born. Then he became 40 years old. Then he became a prophet. And then when he migrated from Makkah to Medina, right, after 13 years of Meccan life as a prophet, from that first year when he was migrating, the Islamic calendar started. That is why the Islamic calendar is called the Hijrah or the Hijri, the time of migration. That is the Islamic calendar. But before that, this main incident was known because of and of course we can also relate all the incident with the Christian calendar. And so this is the around 571 years before, after the Isa al-Islam, and before when the Prophet ﷺ was arriving, right? So this main event which happened, with the event of the elephant, inshallah we're going to stop here and then we will continue from here. Now there are many other things which happened, many other signs. Allah Ta'ala, as I said, I just read the ayat, even mentioned the name of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. From the heaven, Allah Ta'ala designated the name of Ahmad. And in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala is also saying Muhammad, right? So we will explain what these names are and what other signs which happened when the mother of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Hazrat Amina, when she was expecting him, what happened, what signs were taking place around, and what happened. Inshallah, we'll explain this in the fourth lesson, fifth lesson, sorry, inshallah. So I'm going to end here, and I hope everyone is listening. Inshallah, we can continue after, inshallah, next week. Inshallah. So if there are any questions,